Avoid using language that is unparliamentary and out of order. Honorable members, keep quiet.
Stop thinking through your stomachs.
Honorable members,
use your brains to think.
South Africa, like many other democracies around the world, has always had a parliament. During apartheid, that parliament only represented the minority, in other words, white South Africans. Since 1994, our parliament and legislatures is meant to be made up of people from the different political parties that we, the public, vote for in elections. Together, these politicians are supposed to make sure that the laws of the country and the services that departments deliver serve the interest of the majority, and also that they do not unfairly discriminate against any groups. Legislatures is another word for parliament. We have national parliament in Cape Town, and we also have 9 provincial legislatures, 1 in each province. In South Africa, we typically refer to national parliament as parliament and to the provincial parliament as legislatures. The Constitution of South Africa says what legislatures must do. It says that the most important roles the legislatures must play in our democracy is to represent the people and to ensure government by the people under the Constitution. So, our legislatures are meant to belong to the people and not to the political parties. The politicians in legislatures are put there by the political parties that we vote for. They are called members of parliament or members of the provincial legislatures. They are meant to act on our behalf, in other words, in our best interest, and they are meant to listen to what we have to say. There are 3 main things Parliament is meant to work on. Make or amend or fix laws so that the law is fair and good for our society. Make sure that government departments do their job to deliver services to the people of South Africa properly and for the good of the majority. In this way, legislatures must be like the boss of government. They have a responsibility to facilitate public participation in all their work. This must be more than just telling us what they are doing. They must also ask us what we think and take our views seriously when they make decisions.
Okay, I'm sitting here with Sizwe Manqele from the R2K, and I want to ask you, Sizwe, just very briefly tell us your full name, where you work, and something that you're extremely passionate about.
Okay, my name is Sizwe Manqele. I'm a member of the Right2Know Campaign, PWG member in the Western Cape. I'm very passionate about people being able to participate in the economy, whatever they're willing to engage in their communities and make it a success. I'm there to help. I'm a humanitarian by nature, I'm an environmental activist, and I've been involved with the campaign for a number of years now.
Sizwe, can you tell us also just how old you are and which part of Cape Town or Western Cape do you come from?
I'm 36 years old. I'm from Khayelitsha in Cape Town. I'm a Durbanite by birth.
Tell me, what was your can you remember the first time in your entire life that you experienced what injustice felt like in your body?
It feels like trembling. You know, you can just sweat. You will have to go and breathe. So it's really, really hectic. You know, it's embarrassing, it's a shock, it's all those things. So really, it's not a good thing, it's sickening actually.
What was the first time you experienced that personally for yourself?
I was in a multiracial school. I didn't finish a year. That, me, without knowing anything about politics or anything, I was called names with my young brother. Everyone was speaking Afrikaans and everyone was Afrikaans speaking, and so we were thrown out. We were pointed with a gun, and I really knew that that was injustice. We had nothing to do with Mandela. We were children, we were young, we were in a primary school, so that was really injustice. To me, it angered me for a long time. I was 13 years old, so it made me a very quiet person. Yeah, I was angry inside. And so I became angry against a certain race or certain races. And so it took me years to get over that because nobody could explain it to me. While at school, the other kids thought I knew. They thought I knew that I was black, but I didn't know I was black. They told me that I'm black. And so, how did I cope with it? I had to grow. In life happens, and so you need to move on because you have a life to live.
Were you ever able to speak to your parents about these conflicting ideas about your identity and what people were bringing to you at school? Were you ever able to confide in
No.
leadership at home, let's call it?
There wasn't that level of engagement, although we were reporting every day, but there was no kind of a radical consciousness as to what's happening, why is it like that. So I only understood that as an adult, why that happened and why we had to go through that.
Tell me, Sizwe, where did your love for the environment come from? I mean, if I think of Kalicha, it's not exactly green trees and green grass, you know?
Actually, I have a very long history with that. I'm a brainstormer, I'm a person who's full of ideas by nature. So I was sitting with my friends, and so we were looking for an idea to get something cool, make our own money, and so we were daydreaming. And so we came up with this idea together. In fact, I'm the one who came up with it. I'm like, there's these people who are collecting scrap. Can't we go and make some odds for ourselves? And so off we went. We took it from them. I think a year or two later, my mother came from Durban, and so we were collecting tins in Philippi as well as Mitchell's Plain Station and Lentegeur Station. And we had these bags full of tins, and so we called Collect a Can to come and collect them. At that moment, I didn't know that I was cleaning the environment. It was just making money. I only knew it as an adult when I got involved with the waste pickers movement. That's when I grew the consciousness to this is cleaning the environment, this is making the environment dirty, the tins and the plastics and all that. Then I got the consciousness. But it started ages ago without knowing that I'm actually cleaning the environment.
Are you able to share now the knowledge that you know about your environment? Are you able to share that with others? Do people listen to you? Or is it an idea that sticks in your community?
Yes, there are few. Many, they don't get it. They still take, when they finish eating chips, they just throw it anywhere. And it's really shocking now with the level of consciousness I have with regards to the environment. People, they need role models. They need to be motivated. The issue of environment, living in a clean environment, not polluting the environment requires also the other elements of social elements, such as the lack of employment and other things. So as someone who's passionate about this, for me, it hasn't been much of a hassle. However, what is a hassle is to bring the consciousness to the people in the community, and that is really difficult. They really don't see much need. Although when someone like me speaks, at that moment they get the fire. But if there were other people out there who in the community also, but we can't all elaborate the same way. So I'm just one person, and that has been my experience.
How has your identity or your budding identity contributed to you wanting to work in Parliament?
Actually, it has a lot to do with me getting involved in my community. Working in Parliament monitoring was actually an opportunity that I couldn't even imagine. I always thought you have to be a parliamentarian and so forth to actually do something, to act. It was a space so far away from me. And so the Right2Know campaign, in conjunction with the Dala Oma Institute, created this PaliWatch platform where we could go there and observe and really make a study case, a study scenario of what actually happens in Parliament, the processes and everything. And so this has been a great opportunity for me. How it's working for me in my community, I'm a better informed person. When there's a community meeting and I'm in there, you can rest assured I will ask relevant questions. I do have a backup that I can speak on.
What has been your experience in the parliament space? You know, coming from your community, a Durbanite, coming from Kalitra, being an environmental activist, all these things, you know, an entrepreneur, someone who's passionate, someone who's had to really battle with injustices from a very young age. When you sit there and you're in that parliament space, what is it like for you? Do you feel like the shit's working?
At first it was interesting, like I was in parliament. Wow, that's the first I found out that I'm not the only one who felt like that. I felt important. Here I was monitoring in parliament. And so as time went on, I realized that I'm a nobody. You know, if you are not elected through a political party and you don't carry a political party mandate, you are just a person, you know, you are nothing there. And so, but it's also beautiful to be there, to actually hear firsthand as things happen, to witness and to actually get an understanding of the matters that are being discussed firsthand. To have a verbal experience is different to watching it on TV. And so this has enabled me to better express myself, better articulate myself, and to be able to read documents that I never thought I could read because they really look boring. But if you open and you know how to read them, which are the skills that I learned from Paliwatch, so you can better navigate your way, and you don't have to read the entire book. If you go to certain sections, you already have the understanding because you've been attending the portfolio committee. And so having that background and being able to make a follow-up has really been an enriching experience for me that I think all South Africans should have at some point in their lives.
If you look at this idea of South Africa right now, for you, you know, coming from the background that you come from, like, what is needed right now? I mean, obviously we're not doing that well. If we look at the amount of people that are experiencing injustice on a daily basis, on an hourly basis, on a minute basis, what needs to be done? What do the leaders need to? You called yourself a nobody. Yes. Well, then what are the so-called somebodies? What do they need to be aware of or understand about the majority of this country?
Yes. Well, the challenge is people have got ideas. It's not that the solutions are not there. The people who have ideas and who are going through the daily challenges in communities are there. The challenge is carrying those challenges and problems and making those solutions into action that is missing. And so I had in mind that there should be a bridging of the gap between the spheres of government. There shouldn't be people sitting at a certain sphere of government. If there is, then there should be people who are flexible, who go across the spheres of government to ensure that things are happening. One would even imagine a direct access for the public to parliamentary actions, whatever is happening there. But then looking at the scope of this country and the history, it doesn't look like that's about to happen. So I would really love there to be a change also of how we elect our electorate system. At the moment, political parties get to decide who they want to become president, who they want to become a ward councillor, and so forth. And once those people are elected, they carry the mandate of the organization. They've got nothing to do with the community. They're only carrying a mandate of a handful of people. So I think that really needs to change, because what they speak in their meetings is not what an activist like me speaks in a meeting with the community.
What is it like to talk to your community about this stuff? I mean, how do you manage it?
To tell the truth, the exposure that I get really is motivational to me. Being able to go to parliament regularly, to hear, to listen, to see, really, that is really motivating to me. And so I don't see this dying, but I see it growing, because the more I speak about it, the more people are expecting to hear from someone like me what really happened there, what happened yesterday, what's going to happen next week, so I can articulate, I can take them through. And so another interesting thing at home, I used to watch Parliament TV alone. But the interesting thing is that now everybody is interested to watch Parliament TV. Was it the EFF? I'm not really sure. I suspect so. But it's really getting interesting, that the community, when you are there, you are not going anywhere. They can see that you're really passionate about this and they're willing to listen. And so the problem is when you are there and then you disappear and then you reappear again, that really doesn't work. People want someone or people that they can trust. This is the challenge with our political parties. They are there during the season, and the season is the part where they get elected, and after that they disappear. Like now, there's nothing.
Why do you think people disappear?
It's about money, I guess, and the political party mandate. If they were there as passionate activists, they wouldn't disappear because they wouldn't find it difficult maneuvering through the community and taking the real issues to the table and ensuring that they get implemented. But they cannot do that because political parties have got structures. And so they wouldn't be able to change their political party mandate. They cannot disobey what they've been instructed by their structures. So yeah, I think that's why they disappear, because what they say before the elections is not what happens after the elections.
But I mean, this is not a game, right? I mean, people are dying, people are hungry. These are people's lives, right? So with all, like, how do you, in your mind, how is it justified that people who make promises in Parliament don't do their jobs? Like, how does it work? Is that not an injustice?
It is very much injustice, but I cannot really justify how they feel or how they think about that. For me, it's a horror. Where I stay, I call it the wind, because you're not allowed to build. Although some of the people have been there for more than 20 years, others for more than 30 years, but you still cannot build yourself a formal structure. It's still called an informal settlement. So really, it's not that the people who get elected, they don't understand what's happening on the ground. It's that they were never there originally to address the crisis. They were there to get into position, as I call it, get into the palace, which is Parliament, and become a reality.
Sizwe, so I want to get more to some of the nitty-gritty. That was really nice to hear just some of the background, some stuff about you that I didn't know either, even though we've known each other for a long time. You have been monitoring the police committee in Parliament for the past 3 years now. When you started out monitoring the police, and when you compare to what you know now, what have you learned from sitting in that committee, monitoring the police committee?
The committees that are busy in Parliament dealing with the issues, the public issues, they are so organized. Although the communities where the leadership in those committees come from are not organized. If they were, we wouldn't be having the spontaneous protests. So I've learned also that in particular the police committee, they're well-disciplined people, they are well-informed and so forth, but they cannot, like other committees, they cannot maneuver away from political interference. There's always this have to comply with the ruling party, although they don't put it up front like that. For example, the fight or the clash between the SAPS and the IPPiPP. And so that is a very clear politically influenced or driven process between the two.
Can you explain the SAPS and IPPiPP issue and how it played out in the committee?
Yes, it's always a clash. It seems these are two separate things that have nothing to do with each other. These departments, it doesn't look like they're fighting the same cause, because SAPS is always playing a defense or hide and seek, while the IPPiPP is always trying to articulate how they're trying to do their job, and they cannot, because they are under SEPs and they cannot really investigate who is above them, because SEPs now seemingly is above IPID. And so how do you investigate someone who is your boss? And so there are delayed processes between the two, whether it's in their relationship or how they do things. When it comes to IPID and SEPs and what needs to happen between them, it really is a delayed process, from investigations even into commitments.
But can you tell us how that plays out in the committee? How are politicians actually handling this tension between these two structures that are supposedly working towards keeping communities safe?
The opposition parties are always vocal about creating that harmony and getting whatever problems solved between the two. But the ruling party really, it's interesting when the ruling party admires. They will admire the IPID and they will eat the time admiring, instead of being critical about what's happening. You will hear opposition organizations being critical, talking of issues that really affect communities on the ground. There's really no strength with the ruling party in addressing the crisis between IPID and SEPs. And so it's report after report, going back, reviewing and relooking, and so it goes on like that. I really think the real strength, where it would come from at the moment with the type of electoral system we have, would come from the ruling party, who needs to speak out. But that's not happening. We find opposition parties speak out, and I don't think that is being respected by the relevant SEPs. That is not being respected because they are not speaking critical as the opposition parties.
So the opposition parties are being critical, highlighting what you think are the important issues, but that's not being taken up in the committees, what you are saying, essentially. What is the point of opposition parties raising these things then, if it doesn't seem to make a difference in the decisions that the committee is making?
I think the opposition parties have a role to play, because it makes a difference for them to be there speaking, because the public is not allowed. So I can imagine that there's something happening or something is about to happen. There's always hope when they speak. It's good for them to be there speaking and being critical about these issues and trying to get to the real solutions. Because if they were not there, who then would be able to speak?
In the time that you've monitored, was there a time where the ruling party actually took up a critical issue?
Wow.
Oh dear.
If there is, maybe it's just one or two, but no, not really. There was a really loud voice from the Minister of Police about gender-based violence, but then again there was a lack of sensitivity when it comes to it. I really felt when the minister speaks, he lacks sensitivity of the issue. He tends to speak rough about it and say, we must do something about it, we have zero tolerance, and then when he has other utterances, you hear that there's a lack of sensitivity. And so when there's a lack of sensitivity from the minister, how much more with the rest of the people?
Is this a lack of sensitivity in terms of how he speaks about the issue afterwards with his committees and everyone who's below him, or is it a lack of sensitivity in the handling of the issues?
I think it's a lack of sensitivity in both. A lot of things have been spoken in that committee that have not been implemented. One day you get the minister saying, if people didn't do this on this date, we will fire people. They won't be there, but you still see them. The years come to an end, years have passed, those people are still there. So it's not just a lack of sensitivity when he articulates, it's a lack of sensitivity when it comes to addressing those issues. If you go down to the police stations, you still get the same issues happening. It doesn't matter what he said in parliament or to the media, it's still happening there.
In the time that you've monitored that committee, Has any of the ruling party MPs ever been vocal and actually taken up an issue that you thought were critical?
Yeah, has there been any victories in the last 3 years for you in that committee?
No, I'm yet to see things being implemented. In fact, I really feel those people lack understanding of what they are doing, the documents they have at hand. Even when the departments come to present, they only get them in the morning. And so this has been the crisis for the past 3 years. How do you then interrogate something? Or how do you then go to implement something that you only receive in the morning? How are we going to deal with it? It really doesn't make sense, because as an activist, I have to go and look at something and relook at it, and then question myself and sit again and relook at it. And I ask myself, how are they going to deal with issues? If they don't study them, it looks like a fashion show, really.
The next question I want to ask, you are one of the few monitors that have had experiences in monitoring national and the Western Cape Provincial Parliament. I was wondering, can you share with us what you think is the same and what you think works very differently between those two parliaments?
Okay, what I think is the same is the monitoring by, anyway, maybe it's a normal measurement for who attends there and why they are there. Both are similar in the sense that they are uncomfortable with who comes into the room, and they would often come and ask you, where do you come from, why you are there, and sometimes they wouldn't let you sign the register until at a later stage. So that is similar. What is not similar between them, which is the national parliament, and the provincial legislature, which is the Western Cape Provincial Parliament, is the way they handle things. In the provincial legislature, you sometimes get an opportunity to ask questions. Only recently in the national parliament, you had the chairperson of the committee say, if you want to ask a question, please write it on a paper and give it to one of the parliamentarians, the MPs. Only they have the authority to ask that question. And also, another difference is that in the provincial legislature, you get to meet the parliamentarians. It's like first class and second class. In the provincial parliament, you can sit like this with, we can sit on the table with parliamentarians and have a conversation with them. But in the national parliament, you're not able to do that. It's almost like here we are royalty, you're not allowed to speak to us and so forth.
I'm interested that you're saying that, because I agree with you that national parliament, they have protocols and they're much more sticky about their protocols. But in provincial parliament, have you not been put out of a committee when they deliberate because they don't want you to hear what they're talking about, which will not happen in national parliament?
I have not. In the community safety, I have not. There was an incident, but not really being put out. I have been put out in the national parliament. Yeah, I was whisked out. I couldn't even see who was inside the room. And there was no notice as to this is a secret meeting or a closed meeting or whatsoever. I just went in and I was pushed out and the door was closed.
I am aware that with national parliament in particular over the years, you've had quite a few bad experiences with just getting in, with just getting documents. Do you think it's unique to you? Do you think people in general, and why?
Yeah, I think there's a mentality in parliament, national parliament in particular, there's a mentality that you are in parliament. And so let's start with the dress code. You're supposed to dress like you're going to heaven or something. And so the rest of the public in South Africa is not like that. Really, I would go home dressed as normal as possible. But when you get there, they first look at how you are dressed, and so that will now speak to how they address you. And again, they will look at where do you come from. And so if you come from someone or something, someone or something that Parliament is not really friendly about or at ease with, then Parliament will question your presence in the premises, and the faces will change, and there will be people following you and watching you and ensuring that you don't get the documents. Even if other people maybe who are dressed better, or they having laptops, and they will get the documents, but because you are you, they're not gonna give you the documents. It's almost like you have to up your game. You have to wear a certain brand. You have to have a laptop, and there's a criteria. I don't know how they do it. Some people, they get, when you go, they give you something to put on your neck with your details, and then you will be standing on the line, and you are the only one who doesn't get. They just give you a paper. You see, so those are the things that happen in Parliament, and you get questioned over and over again. Maybe it's a security mechanism, but it really is not good. You get questioned, when last were you in Parliament, and your picture can get taken the whole week. It's like they don't have your details, and most of the time you have to tell them where the committee you are going to is. It's like the receptionist, they don't know where you are going. You have to tell them. So if you have the information on your phone, they will wait for you to open your phone and tell them, I'm going to committee room so. So that is really, their administration is really behind. While the government is busy talking about the fourth industrial revolution, it's really shocking to get there and find out that they're so backwards.
I mean, you're saying there's a combination of they're profiling people, and some people get treated better than other people, but they're also incompetent on some levels.
Maybe you can call it incompetence, in the sense that there needs to be better planning. For example, there will be meetings where they know that a large crowd will be coming in, and you would expect that they are better prepared for that, but you will find the opposite. You will be standing in the queue sweating, and they will be starting with people in suits, people wearing expensive clothes. It doesn't matter if you are in front of the line. They will really stop you, and those people will walk in and they will do everything. Some of them are coming to Parliament for the first time, and finally when it's your turn, they ask you, although you've seen them yesterday, the same person will ask you, have you been in Parliament before? And you're like, yes. When last were in Parliament? It's the same person admitting you that you were speaking to yesterday. So really, I don't understand whether it's a matter of competence or it's a matter of planning, or who is not doing what they're supposed to do, getting creative with it.
So knowing what you know about Parliament and how it doesn't work, why are you still doing this work?
I think I have a duty first as a person. Whenever an opportunity arises that would put me at that platform to actually do something about it, and I think I would take that opportunity, and this is what I have done for the Right2Know campaign under PaliWatch. So I think it's I would continue doing it anywhere, with or without PaliWatch or Right2Know. I would do it because I am now better informed, because when you have knowledge, you are better positioned to actually do something or say something. There's a lot of people out there who don't know what to say or where to go. So I do it so that I make a difference in my community as well as in my activism work. I think it's not being able to access formal education doesn't mean that you cannot educate yourself in other means. So this has been formal for me. It's just that we're not calling it a degree or anything like that. So yeah, it's beautiful.
Thank you so much, Sizwe, for your time. It's been incredible talking to you and learning from you, and we wish you everything of the best with your endeavors, and we hope that you continue with your duty, because we definitely need people like you.
Thank you very much.
The title of this project is Putting the People in People's Parliament, known as PPiPP. PPiPP trains and supports activists, community members, and people from civil society organizations to go to legislatures and tell them what we want from government, and also to hold the people elected to serve us to account to do their jobs in the way that the Constitution says. PPiPP is made up of different organizations. This project would not be possible without the generous support of the European Union, the Heinrich Böll Foundation, and the Open Society Foundation of South Africa. Even though the views that we have expressed in this podcast do not necessarily reflect the views of our donors, like us, these funders are committed to making sure that South Africa's democracy is open and serves the public. We all should expect that our elected reps do better. PPiPP knows firsthand how difficult it is to get information on how to access the legislatures and to meaningfully participate in decisions made. The official route is to phone, write a letter, email, or visit constituency offices, your legislatures or parliament. You can also ask for meetings with elected representatives. Parliament and the legislatures all have websites with contact numbers that you can find if you Google them. For people with access to the internet, the People's Assembly is a good place to find out who your elected representative is. If anyone is struggling to get information about Parliament or the legislatures, they can call us on 021 959 2951.
Avoid using language that is unparliamentary and out of order. Honorable members, keep quiet.
Stop thinking through your stomachs.
Honorable members,
Use your brains to think.
expired.